Y'all feel better now? Alright, let's get the show on the road. Peace, peace, peace. RL 718, Red Lion ESV, you already know, back in full effect. Now this is gonna touch on a little more of that red pill content, because I know I can do monologues, but I think about all day. But when you start talking about red pill, that's a little more up my alley, and it's not because I read a few books. It's kind of because I lived it. You feel me? But the topic of the discussion, everything is perception. Everything is perception. Shout out Ron Wells, shout out BGS, shout out C Boogie Productions. You know what I mean? But my personal spin on it, everything being perception. When you start talking about red pill, you start talking about red pill rage, start talking about people getting bent out of shape based on what they've seen, what they've read. In all fairness, what a lot of it is, pardon me, is it's not just breaking out of quote unquote blue pill conditioning. It's the fact that what what a woman actually thinks matters. And I think that's probably the biggest sore spot. Not so much that you've been lied to and you want to, break everything in sight because of that. It's because regardless of what you say, what you do, your clothing, your vehicle, you start talking about, your social status, things of that nature. A lot of this stuff really is a sore spot because it's basically the way a female views you. That's the sore spot. So that means you could be OG Bully Lope Dog with 10 bodies. If she thinks you're a bozo, she's going to treat you like a bozo. And I don't think a lot of men can handle that. And you can tell not just in the comment sections, but just the way, people maneuver in actual real life. They're bent out of shape behind that. When, the average female says something or is disrespectful, like a lot of their retort is, I make more money than you. Or I drive a Porsche, pardon me, I drive a Porsche, V12 engine, yada, yada, yada. And it doesn't matter. She thinks you're a bozo. And that's the way she's going to treat you. And that's why when you listen to a Rollo Tomasi or a Donovan Sharp, and they start talking about frame, they're not exaggerating. And I know this from life experience. I didn't have to read a book. I peeped it. I'm like, oh, I bet. Because I can assure you, there's been a lot of situations where, from New York, we're the original nomads. We go everywhere. Whether you're hustling, whether you play a sport, whether you're an entertainer, or you're somebody such as myself, you get kicked out of everywhere that you've ever been, so you're constantly moving around, and you're the new kid in town. You're fresh meat. You know what I mean? You look different, you dress different, you carry yourself different, you have a different swagger to you. Your ideology is different. You're the new person in town. And because I'm from New York originally, not upstate, not Buffalo, shout out to Buffalo, Schenectady, Poughkeepsie, you know what I mean? Shout out to those places, Albany, Kingston, I can shout those places out, not stepping on them, but City Boy, Bronx, Harlem Flash and Pizzazz, you know what I mean? Apollo Theater, Live on Lennox, you know what I mean? When Cam was out, when Rough Riders was out. I know these things. So immediately when I go somewhere, there's a certain level of projection. There's certain things that are projected onto me. Even if I don't want it, it's projected onto me. So when I go to these places, they go, wow, you're from New York. There's bodies all over the ground when you step outside. Now, don't get it twisted, I'm not really in that age bracket or even lived in certain environments to see bodies laying all over the place, but that is what's projected onto me. So when you talk about frame, there's certain places I would go and people would, oh, now he's from New York, they give me some elbow room. And this is long before I understood what any of this stuff meant, but people were just immediately giving me that elbow room, like, nah, chill, leave him be, it ain't worth the headache. And as it relates to the ladies, they ain't never seen certain jewelry. They've never seen leather jackets and leather and wool and, $1,200 and $1,500 jackets that you just sit outside in the cold in because you really ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? or certain types of jewelry, certain carats, you wouldn't wear karat gold. There was a point in time, in Harlem, you wouldn't be caught dead in 10 karat gold because it's not technically a whole bunch of gold in there. I think it's like 30%, 37%, something along those lines. And you were clowning, you know what I mean? Jerseys popping, you wouldn't be dead, caught dead with a, you know what I mean? A female would look inside the collar of your jersey like, ew, how dare you? It's not a Nike, that's an Adidas, ew. Get them away from me, I mean, burn it. But I say all that to say as it relates to perception, the way I'm perceived is different and people treat me different. And it's no different than, being overweight, which I am. You have some people who are cut, they automatically assume, you know what I mean? You see a big dude, automatically up, he gotta be slow, he gotta be sloppy, he gotta be clumsy. And that's actually the furthest from the truth. I'm actually really light on my feet, which, you know what I mean? It's a dirty little secret. I'm not slow at all. You know what I mean? I have really quick hands, you know what I mean? Jab, knuckle game is decent. And it can throw people off. They also people, oh, you're big, you must be stupid. No, I'm pretty well read and well versed. And that can also throw people off. But that relates to the whole red pill rage and perception, the way you're viewed. And I think that bothers people because a lot of dudes are saying to themselves, I'm great, look at me. But as it relates to the opposite sex, they go, you're not really all that hot, and please get away from me before I mace you. And that can really throw people off, and I know that really rubs people the wrong way. Especially as it relates to, the middle class. You start to talk about the Europeans. That's what they're so bent out of shape about. Because somebody told them, hey, if I get a good job and I get a nice car and a house, yada, 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 they're gonna like me. That's the way they were taught. That's their blue pill conditioning. How they're perceived, let's be real. As somebody who is a retired knucklehead, there's nothing really appealing about having a job. It's not appealing. It's nothing fun about it. You know what I mean? There's nothing appealing about that. It's always been the American appeal, or just the appeal in general, to the opposite sex of them being rebellious, them being a rebel, whether it's, having long hair when everybody has a short cut. Or myself, I wear a lot of red, hence Red Lion, but wear a lot of red. So I can use myself as an example, maneuvering around the DC, Maryland area, especially DC. The colors of choice are working man's colors, navy blue, black, and gray. Those are working man's colors. Now, red can be seen as a feminine color. If you're gangbanging, you already know what red is, at least on the East Coast and the West Coast. Can't speak for Chicago. But it stands out as a bright color. So in a world of blue, black, and gray, red stands out. So henceforth, people are going to flock to it. They're going to gravitate to that. They're going to gravitate to that new thing. But as it relates to the way people are perceived, if you got scars on your knuckles, then people automatically perceive you to be a pretty good fighter. That was also a running joke in the slums. You don't get into a fight with a dude with no front teeth. Because if you don't care about his front teeth and his dental benefits, he probably doesn't care about your front teeth and your dental benefits. There's another thing, the light skin, dark skin thing. If you're fair skinned, depending on where you go, they say most light skinned dudes are mean. Being up north, being in New York, it was a running gag. Like, yo, if he's dark skinned, he don't care about nothing because you can't see him. If you beat him, he don't bruise. That's one of the things we ran with. But, that's colorism. That's a completely different subject altogether. But bringing everything back, back on code and everything, that's really what a lot of this frustration and this red pill rage stuff is going in. It's because a lot of men are living in their heads and trying to project it and going, I think I'm great, so you should think I'm great too. And unfortunately, that's not the case. It actually matters what she thinks. If she thinks you're a ladies' man, she's going to project that energy onto you, and it's going to spill over, into the next female. Because truth be told, most women function like cheerleaders. I would know because I've been in those shoes before, where I had somebody so attractive on my arm, more than one case, where they were so attractive that even other dudes were like, yo, that can't be you. And I'm like, yeah, that is me. How you pull that off, I have no clue. Maybe it's my healthy smile and these chinky eyes. I have no clue, but she won't leave me alone, and I need a crowbar to get her off me. And how did that relate to the other ladies? They wanted to know what I was about. Because they were like, how did he pull this off? He got to have a foot long. He got to have some bread. He better be driving. He's probably he's from New York, he a drug kingpin. Because for some reason, being from New York immediately means you come with a drug connect, a rap career, 2 razor blades, a gun, a pit bull, and you know Cameron, or you're from Brooklyn, so you have to know Jay-Z. No funny biz. I've been knuckling up with people from Brooklyn forever. I went for the longest up until adulthood. I ain't get along with a lot of people from Brooklyn. It's weird. So when people will bring, oh, you must be from Brooklyn. Please don't do that. I hate that shit. But as it relates to the way I'm perceived, yeah. And the same thing with the guys. Same thing with the guys. I don't think they give themselves enough time to self-reflect and go, okay, how does the world see me? Especially as millennials, you have to ask yourself, how does the world see me? Because the easiest thing to do is become self-absorbed, say screw everybody's opinion, and then you just mess around, you just kind of just walking around agitating everyone because you don't have any self-awareness. In a nutshell, I think that's probably what it is. That's probably the best way to word it, lack of self-awareness. That's probably the best way to word it, lack of self-awareness. But yeah, in a nutshell, everything is perception. Shout out to Kevin Samuels, master alchemist. And that's accurate. People treat you differently based on the way you dress. If you live in one environment, specifically the slums, there is what's the term I'm looking for? There is a premium on violence. So that's why when we have the argument about Pookie and Ray Ray, the question really is, who are you chasing? Who are you hunting? And that'll probably be another video based on, who are you hunting? What are you angling for? Because obviously if you're dealing with someone in a certain capacity and they come from the hood, come from the slums, they're going to be looking for, their idea of alpha is going to be someone with a decent knuckle game, someone who can make something out of nothing, a hustler. Why? Because in those environments, there's a lack of resources, and you better be damn violent to be able to control it and keep a handle on it. Because people will take from you in the hood. There's no two ways about it. Versus if you're in a suburban environment, middle class, upper middle class, etc. The suit and tie may be the wave because that rough and tumble stuff doesn't work in the upper middle class. They have jail cells for you. And depending on where you go, suburbs, countryside, they definitely have a spot for you in jail because there's nothing but space out there. You know what I mean? Just a couple things for you to, quote unquote, chew on, pause. Something to think about. Everything truly is perception. From the way you carry yourself, your frame, the clothes that you wear, and of course, the way the ladies perceive you. If they perceive you a certain way, it's not much you're going to do to change that. You'd be better off changing your environment or changing, the thing that it is you're hunting, or the woman that it is, the woman that you have your eye on. Because if she wants a hoodlum and you ain't a hoodlum, she's gonna pull your card every time and you're gonna play yourself every time. If she wants a money man and you ain't it and you keep putting yourself out there as the money man, she's gonna spend you until you're beyond the red. You're gonna be in the black. I don't think you want that headache. So fellas, definitely tighten up. Definitely do some self-reflecting. Definitely work on your self-awareness. And above all else, man, look at your target and make sure that's really what you want. You know what I mean? It's Red Lion 718, Red Lion ESV. As always, peace and love. I'm going to holler at y'all. One.